There will always be something that tries to disturb your peace. A word someone says, a person who misunderstands you, a situation that does not go according to your plan, someone who disrespects you, someone who leaves, someone who provokes you and waits for you to react. And in those moments, you are given a choice. You can react immediately, or you can pause. That pause may look like nothing from the outside, but inside that pause, something powerful is happening. You are taking your mind back. You are taking your attention back. You are taking your power back. Because the person who can control your reaction cannot easily be controlled by the world. You do not become powerful by becoming louder. You do not become strong by winning every argument. You do not become free by proving yourself to everyone. You become powerful when you no longer feel the need to respond to everything. When someone provokes you, you breathe. When someone misunderstands you, you remain centered. When anger rises, you observe it. When disappointment comes, you accept it, not because you are weak, but because you understand that every reaction has a price. Every unnecessary argument consumes your energy. Every emotional response gives something outside of you permission to enter your inner world. So ask yourself, why am I reacting? What am I trying to prove? Does this deserve my energy? Does this moment require a response? Or does it require silence? The goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is to become conscious, to feel anger without becoming anger, to feel fear without allowing fear to decide for you, to experience disappointment without losing yourself inside it. Your emotions are part of you, but they do not have to be your master. There is a different kind of strength that appears when you stop reacting automatically. You become slower to anger, quicker to understand, more comfortable with silence, less dependent on approval, and more difficult to manipulate. The world will continue to test you. People will continue to misunderstand you. Unexpected things will continue to happen. You cannot control everything that happens around you, but you can train yourself to control what happens within you. And that is where your real power begins. The less you react, the more clearly you see. The more clearly you see, the wiser your decisions become. And the wiser your decisions become, the more peaceful and powerful you become. Most people do not lose their power because they are weak. They lose their power because they react too quickly. Something happens, an emotion rises, and before they have even understood what they are feeling, they have already spoken, already acted, already made a decision they may later regret. A few seconds of unconscious reaction can create consequences that last for hours, days, or even years. This is why learning to pause before you react is one of the simplest and most powerful forms of self-mastery. Imagine someone says something disrespectful to you. Your first instinct may be to defend yourself. You want to answer immediately. You want them to know that they cannot speak to you that way. Your body becomes tense. Your thoughts become faster. Your emotions become stronger. In that moment, the mind tells you that reacting will make you powerful. But often the opposite is true. When another person can push one button and immediately control your behavior, they have gained access to your attention and your emotions. The pause changes everything. The pause does not mean that you are afraid. It does not mean that you have nothing to say. It means that you refuse to surrender your response to your first emotional impulse. You create a small space between what happens and what you choose to do next. That space is where awareness begins. When you pause, you can observe what is happening inside you. You can notice the anger without becoming the anger. You can notice the frustration without allowing frustration to speak for you. You can recognize the desire to prove yourself without automatically following it. This is difficult because the mind often wants immediate release. Anger wants expression. Fear wants escape. Pride wants recognition. Ego wants to win. But not every feeling needs to become an action. Sometimes the strongest response is to wait. Take a breath, become still. Allow the emotion to rise and pass through you without immediately acting upon it. You may discover that what felt extremely important 5 minutes ago no longer deserves your attention. You may realize that the person who provoked you was searching for a reaction. You may understand that explaining yourself will accomplish nothing. You may even recognize that silence communicates more strength than an argument ever could. This does not mean you should tolerate disrespect or remain silent in every situation. There are moments when you must speak. There are moments when boundaries must be established. There are moments when action is necessary. But even then, there is a difference between responding with awareness and reacting from emotion. A reaction is automatic, a response is chosen. A reaction says, "You made me do this." A response says, "I decide what I do next." That difference is enormous. The more you practice pausing, the more control you develop over yourself. At first, you may only pause for a few seconds. Later, you may notice the emotion before it becomes overwhelming. Eventually, you begin to recognize your triggers before they control you. Someone criticizes you, and you breathe. Someone ignores you, and you remain calm. Someone challenges your character, and you do not immediately defend yourself. Someone tries to pull you into an argument, and you ask whether the argument is even worth your energy. This is emotional discipline. Your goal is not to eliminate emotions. Your goal is to stop allowing temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. There is great strength in becoming difficult to provoke. Not because you no longer care, but because you have learned that your peace is valuable. You understand that your attention is limited. Your energy is limited. Your time is limited. Therefore, you become selective about what deserves a reaction from you. Before you answer, pause. Before you send the message, pause. Before you make the decision, pause. Before anger becomes words, pause. In that moment of stillness, you give yourself something that reaction can never give you. The freedom to choose. Your outer world will always contain things you cannot control. People will have their opinions. Situations will change. Plans will fail. Someone may disappoint you. Someone may misunderstand you. You may face rejection, criticism, uncertainty, or unexpected challenges. If your inner state depends completely on what happens around you, then your peace will always be in the hands of circumstances and other people. This is why true emotional strength begins with learning to control your inner world. You cannot always choose what happens, but you can learn to choose what you do with what happens. You cannot control another person's behavior, but you can control whether their behavior determines your mood. You cannot prevent every difficult moment, but you can train yourself not to lose yourself inside those moments. Think about how easily the outside world can influence the mind. Someone sends you a message with the wrong tone, and suddenly your mood changes. Someone does not give you the attention you expected, and you begin questioning yourself. Someone criticizes you, and you spend the entire day thinking about their words. A small event becomes a large emotional storm because you allowed something outside of you to enter too deeply into your inner world. The solution is not to become cold. The solution is to become centered. When you are centered, you still feel everything. You still experience happiness, sadness, anger, disappointment, excitement, and fear. But you no longer allow every emotion to take control of your behavior. You become the observer of your emotions instead of becoming their prisoner. When anger appears, you can ask, what is this anger trying to tell me? When fear appears, you can ask, what am I afraid of losing? When jealousy appears, you can ask, what insecurity is being touched inside me? When disappointment appears, you can ask, what expectation did I create? These questions create awareness. Awareness creates distance. And that distance gives you the ability to choose. A powerful person is not someone who never becomes emotional. A powerful person is someone who knows how to return to balance. You may have a difficult morning, but you do not have to carry that difficulty into the entire day. You may have an uncomfortable conversation, but you do not have to replay it in your mind for hours. Someone may judge you, but you do not have to make their judgment your identity. You can acknowledge what happened and still remain yourself. This is where emotional independence begins. You stop asking the world to constantly make you feel safe, respected, understood, or valued. You begin creating those qualities within yourself. You stop needing everyone to agree with you before you feel confident. You stop needing everyone to approve of you before you feel worthy. The less dependent you become on external validation, the more stable your inner world becomes. But this requires practice. Every day, life will give you opportunities to train your mind. A difficult person becomes a lesson in patience. A delay becomes a lesson in acceptance. Criticism becomes a lesson in self-awareness. Rejection becomes a lesson in detachment. Failure becomes a lesson in resilience. You begin to understand that not every uncomfortable experience is an enemy. Some experiences are training. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what can this teach me? That small change in perspective can transform the way you experience life. You no longer spend all your energy fighting reality. You learn to accept what has already happened and focus your energy on what you can influence now. This does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming intelligent with your energy. If something can be changed, take action. If something needs to be communicated, speak clearly. If something requires a boundary, create one. But if something is completely outside your control, learn to release the struggle against it. Because fighting reality does not change reality. It only exhausts you. Your inner world becomes stronger every time you choose awareness over impulse, acceptance over resistance, and discipline over emotional chaos. Eventually, you realize that peace is not something you receive when everything goes perfectly. Peace is something you build within yourself so that you can remain steady even when everything around you does not. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people think silence means weakness, fear, or having nothing to say. But there is another kind of silence, one that comes from self-control. It is the silence of a person who knows that not every word deserves an answer. Not every argument deserves participation, and not every provocation deserves their energy. In a world where everyone wants to respond immediately, silence can become a form of strength. Someone criticizes you, and you do not rush to defend yourself. Someone misunderstands you, and you do not immediately explain every detail. Someone tries to provoke you, and you refuse to give them the reaction they are looking for. You remain calm, observe the situation, and decide whether speaking will actually improve anything. That decision is powerful, because when you constantly explain yourself, you give other people control over your attention. When you constantly defend yourself, you allow their opinions to determine your emotional state. When you feel the need to answer every accusation, You may spend your entire life trying to prove your worth to people who have already decided what they want to believe. You do not need to win every misunderstanding. Sometimes silence protects your peace better than an explanation ever could. This does not mean that you should remain silent when something important needs to be addressed. Healthy communication matters. Boundaries matter. Truth matters. There are moments when your voice is necessary, but there is a difference between speaking because something meaningful needs to be communicated and speaking because your ego cannot tolerate being challenged. Learning to recognize that difference is part of emotional maturity. Before you speak, ask yourself whether your words are coming from clarity or from emotion. Are you speaking because the situation requires it? Or are you speaking because you want to prove that you are right? Are you communicating a boundary? Or are you trying to punish someone with your words? Are you seeking understanding? Or are you simply trying to win? These questions can save you from many unnecessary conflicts. Silence gives you time to see what emotion is moving through you. When anger rises, silence prevents anger from becoming your voice. When pride rises, silence prevents pride from making decisions. When frustration rises, silence allows the mind to settle before you respond. Sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is nothing for a moment. Take a breath, step back. Observe. Let the intensity decrease. Then decide. This is not weakness, it is restraint. A person who cannot control their tongue often becomes controlled by their emotions. One careless sentence can damage a relationship. One angry message can create a conflict that lasts for days. One impulsive response can reveal information that should have remained private. Silence creates protection. It protects your energy. It protects your dignity. It protects your ability to think. And sometimes it protects your future. There is also power in allowing people to misunderstand you. Not everyone deserves access to your entire story. Not everyone needs an explanation for your choices. Not everyone will understand your path, and that is okay. The moment you accept that you cannot control everyone's perception of you, you become freer. You stop chasing approval. You stop trying to correct every opinion. You stop exhausting yourself with endless explanations. You begin to understand that your life is not a courtroom where you must constantly defend your character. Your actions will speak over time. Your consistency will speak. Your discipline will speak. Your character will speak. Silence becomes especially powerful when it is combined with action. You do not need to announce every goal. You do not need to tell everyone what you are planning. You do not need to prove that you are changing. Work quietly. Grow quietly. Build quietly. Let the results become the explanation. The strongest silence is not empty. It is full of awareness. It contains patience, discipline, observation, and choice. When you become comfortable with silence, you become less reactive. You begin noticing what others miss. You listen more carefully. You understand situations more deeply. You recognize when someone is trying to provoke you and when someone genuinely wants to communicate. You no longer feel pressured to fill every uncomfortable moment with words. You become comfortable with yourself. And when you are comfortable with yourself, you no longer need to constantly make noise to feel powerful. Emotions are a natural part of being human. You will experience anger, fear, sadness, excitement, jealousy, disappointment, frustration, and joy. None of these emotions make you weak. They are signals from within you telling you that something has happened that your mind considers important. The problem begins when you stop observing your emotions and start obeying them. An emotion can arrive in seconds. A decision made under that emotion can affect you for much longer. You feel anger, and suddenly you want to say something hurtful. You feel rejected, and suddenly you want to chase someone for an explanation. You feel disrespected, and immediately you want to prove your strength. You feel afraid, and you want to escape before understanding what is actually happening. The emotion speaks loudly, but loud does not always mean wise. Restoring your emotions does not mean suppressing them. Suppression means pushing feelings away and pretending they do not exist. Mastery means recognizing what you feel without allowing that feeling to automatically control your behavior. When anger appears, notice it. When fear appears, notice it. When sadness appears, notice it. When jealousy appears, notice it. You do not have to fight the emotion. You simply have to become aware of it. Imagine standing beside a river and watching the water move. You do not need to stop the river. You simply observe its movement. Emotions can be understood in the same way. They rise, they move, and eventually they change. The mistake is believing that because you feel something strongly, you must act immediately. You do not. You can feel anger and remain silent. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel sadness and continue taking care of yourself. You can feel disappointment and still choose acceptance. You can feel jealousy and use it as information instead of allowing it to become resentment. This creates an important separation between feeling and action. You are not your anger. You are the person experiencing anger. You are not your fear. You are the person noticing fear. You are not your thoughts. You are the person capable of observing those thoughts. Once you understand this, emotions lose some of their power over you. Instead of saying, "I am angry," you can begin saying, "I am experiencing anger." That small change creates distance, and inside that distance is choice. Perhaps the anger is telling you that a boundary has been crossed. Perhaps fear is showing you an area where you need courage. Perhaps sadness is asking you to slow down and process something you have avoided. Perhaps jealousy is revealing an insecurity or desire that you have not acknowledged. The emotion itself may contain useful information, but information is not instruction. Just because anger tells you something does not mean you must act aggressively. Just because fear tells you something is uncertain does not mean you must run away. Just because sadness appears does not mean your life is falling apart. Listen to the message without surrendering your authority. This is emotional discipline. And emotional discipline becomes stronger through practice. The next time something triggers you, do not immediately reach for your phone. Do not immediately send the message. Do not immediately raise your voice. Give yourself a moment, breathe slowly. Notice your body, notice your thoughts. Notice the story your mind is creating. Then ask yourself, what response will I respect tomorrow? That question can change everything, because the goal is not to win the moment. The goal is to remain aligned with the person you want to become. Anyone can react when they are angry. Anyone can speak when they feel attacked. Anyone can make decisions when emotions are intense. But it takes discipline to remain conscious when your emotions are demanding control. The stronger you become internally, the less your emotional state depends on the behavior of others. Someone can be rude, but you do not have to become rude. Someone can be angry, but you do not have to become angry. Someone can create chaos, but you do not have to carry that chaos inside yourself. You can acknowledge what is happening and still choose peace. This is what it means to master your emotions. Not to destroy them, not to hide them, not to become cold, but to understand them deeply enough that they no longer control your choices, your words, or the direction of your life. Every moment of your life gives you a choice. Something happens, a thought appears, an emotion rises, and then you decide what you will do with it. Most people move through this process so quickly that they do not even notice the choice. Something happens, they react, and only afterward do they realize that they could have responded differently. But emotional strength begins when you become aware of that space between what happens and what you do next. You cannot control every situation. You cannot control what another person says, how they behave, whether they understand you, whether they appreciate you, or whether life follows the plan you created. But you can control the response you choose. That is where your freedom begins. Imagine someone criticizing you. Your first instinct may be to defend yourself. You may feel anger rising inside you. You may want to explain everything, prove that they are wrong, or make them feel the same discomfort they created in you. But before you speak, there is a moment when you can stop and ask yourself, what response serves me best? That question changes the direction of the moment. You might realize that the criticism contains something useful. You might recognize that the person is simply trying to provoke you. You might decide that the situation deserves a calm conversation. Or you might realize that no response is necessary at all. The power is not in always choosing silence. The power is in choosing consciously. A response is intentional. A reaction is automatic. When you react, the emotion chooses for you. When you respond, you choose despite the emotion. This distinction becomes especially important during conflict. When two people are emotional, each reaction creates another reaction. One person raises their voice, the other raises theirs. One attacks, the other defends. One becomes angry, the other becomes angry. Soon the original problem is forgotten, and both people are simply fighting to protect their pride. But what happens when one person refuses to continue the cycle? Someone speaks harshly, and you lower your voice. Someone becomes aggressive, and you remain composed. Someone tries to pull you into an argument, and you refuse to give your attention to it. You have interrupted the pattern. That does not mean you are surrendering. It means you are refusing to allow someone else's emotional state to dictate yours. This is one of the deepest forms of self-control. You begin to understand that you do not have to match the energy that comes toward you. If someone brings anger, you can bring calm. If someone brings confusion, you can bring clarity. If someone brings impatience, you can bring patience. If someone brings disrespect, you can respond with a firm boundary without losing your dignity. This requires practice because the nervous system often wants immediate action. The mind wants to protect itself. The ego wants to defend its image. But you are not required to obey every impulse simply because it appears. Give yourself time. Take one breath before answering. Take 10 breaths if necessary. Walk away from the conversation if your emotions are too intense. Discern when you can speak without trying to hurt, punish, or prove something. There is no shame in taking time to regain your balance. In fact, sometimes walking away is the most responsible response you can make. Choosing your response also means choosing what deserves your attention. Not every message needs an answer. Not every opinion needs correction. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every disagreement needs to become a battle. Your energy is limited. Spend it where it creates something meaningful. Use your words to build when words are needed. Use silence when silence protects your peace. Use boundaries when boundaries are necessary. Use action when action can change the situation. And when something cannot be changed, Learn to release your struggle against it. The mature mind does not ask, how can I control everything? It asks, what is within my control right now? Your thoughts, your words, your behavior, your attention, your decisions, your next step. These are the places where your power lives. When you practice choosing your response, you slowly become less controlled by circumstances. Difficult situations may still hurt, but they no longer automatically determine who you become. You can experience disappointment without becoming bitter. You can experience rejection without losing your worth. You can experience criticism without destroying your confidence. You remain yourself while moving through the storm. And eventually, you realize that real power was never about controlling other people or controlling every situation around you. It was about becoming disciplined enough to control the one thing that has always been within your reach, your own response.